And starting this week, we will start the petitions because I'm trying to create a global movement. Obviously, I didn't create this for helping like hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people, even million people. My goal is more than billions, if possible, the entire world. Yeah, but because in the traditional sense, education obviously is not. It has its value, but for modern time, it has a lot of limits, and it's time for change. And the time for change is something that can. So what is better, education or math, especially math or science, that is as easy, as affordable, as accessible as all this electricity and everything we have around. That's just physically, yeah? And if you have everything get internalized, if you have access to this one, that's the beginning of a tremendous transformation of the humanity in human history, yeah? And as I said before, this USL is not simply for education, but as of now, main focus is the triple E. Triple E is education, economy, and environment. So far, economy is separate from education, large extent, and environment. Environments and education have been tremendously suffered because at the expense of economic growth in most of the developing or developed countries, and that's an unfortunate fact. So what I'm trying to do is, if you have a freedom of math that much, there have been various studies done by the economists specializing in the human capital, yeah? And according to various studies, I'll give you simply one example, and I'm going to extrapolate a little bit. For instance, in the United States, every math level of, let's say, 10th grade or something like that, 15 years or 14 years, more or less, math level of average American is like 1 year behind the Canada level. So suppose the Americans' average math going up just 1 year up. That implicates more or less average American workers' income is going to basically 20% increase for the next 20, 30 years. So that will be basically $1.5, $2 trillion more or less, I suppose. And the language is going to fluctuate a little bit. But in the developed world, more or less this kind of relationship is existing. Yeah, but I'm not talking about the 1 year advancing more or less average math. I'm talking about earlier time genius level to double speed, and then the 3 times faster, the world class level, the fastest one in the entire world, and then obviously 5, 10 times beyond even the fastest learner in the entire world for math and science. Yeah, and if this happens, human capital potential, depending on the calculation, the human capital potential will be for USL. Eventually, if there is a UN participate, which I'm trying right now, UN and the UNESCO get involved. If we go global and creating the international treaty, not to abuse this one, for the benefit of the mankind instead of abusing it, basically what will happen is the value of USL will be greater than the entire annual economy of United States or EU and beyond. And later on, there is a 5, 6, whatever years down the road, if we have more collaboration in the G20 country, BRIC countries, and so on, then it'll be bigger than the entire global economy. Is it possible? Yeah, everybody is becoming like at the current level, impossible learning, math and science, critical for the education. So education then is going to be boost to the economy in general. But again, education, economy, and environment in conjunction, in harmony, yeah, in sync, totally synced, instead of fighting with each other or hating each other. That's basically what's going to happen. So if all these things together with establishing the international treaty, what's going to happen is that each country is going to have a surplus boost of their economy. There are a lot of suffering in the EU country for the past several years. Many EU countries actually negative economic growth over the past 3, 4 years or so, and it's going to continue, I believe. So what I'm trying to do is those developed countries, they are continue rising up instead of going down. So continue pumping it using the USL. And at the same time, but with the condition, it's not for free, because this project is to try to help the world instead of making the richer, poorer and poorer. Right now, the global economic gap of the richest country and poorest country is like 100 times difference, which is very, very bad. And to make it even worse, there is the new one came out lately, is less than 100 people, richest people on earth, they have as much money as poorest half the world population. Can you accept it? It's obviously ridiculous. And how about the global starvation to death, which is a very serious problem, and the extreme poverty? In the world, about 1 out of 5 people, more or less 1.1 billion right now, I believe, more or less, of the people living in extreme poverty, meaning each day they make like $1.5, $2 or less. And well, so this obviously going to have a lot of negative consequences. Another thing, each day, a lot of 9,000, 10,000 people starve to death. It's basically about 3 million people a year, and every 3.5, 3.6 seconds or something like that, everybody, each one starve to death. And each day is close to 10,000 people. During the 9/11, during the day of 9/11, roughly about 3,000 people. In other words, every day, 3 times the number of people who died of the 9/11 starved to death. 3 times as much each day. It's not just one day shot. It's continuing every week, every month, every year, every decade, and beyond, if you don't do anything about it. There have been various global efforts to stop this and reduce the process, and there have been certain success, but it's taking too much time and too much money and too much effort and too much noises. Yeah. So what I'm proposing is all this can be reduced if there is an international treaty developed. All this growing country, rich country will continue on, but the gap will be, they are going to continue on. Very poor one will be faster catching up in relatively short time frame. My effort will be 5-10 years, try to minimize, instead of 100 times difference, try to make it 10 times difference, which is more or less acceptable. Yeah, and beyond that, hopefully even better. That is a plan, but this is the long-term plan with this staggering new results, yeah, of the USL. And again, USL is a global project to make the world everything put together. So initially, it's going to be education and economy and environment in conjunction, but later on, it's going to be much more. One more, obviously going to impact the employment one, but the work behavior, work ethics will be very different from what it is now. Not only that, it's going to have a green energy focus as well. So basically, everything will be interconnected together, so redistributed the wealth, redistributed the information, redistributed the educational resources and capability, etc., etc. So this is the grand map of the future, yeah, blueprint, let's say. So for the lack of a better word, but this one needs to start at some point, yeah. I cannot just theorize everything somebody else going to do. We've been recently trying to make a global movement out of this, yeah.